Our adventure continues once Ash and Go are back in Vermilion City. Ash is still in his more depressed state, but he's trying not to show it. However, Go is seeing right through it. The problem is, he doesn't know what to do about it. Before Go can really start planning some way to get Ash back to feeling his usual self, though, they of course have to go see Chloe present for her fossil Pokemon project. This is where Chloe meets a girl by the name of Regina, who's moved from the Sinnoh region they had just visited. This is where I'm going to have the events of the episode Breaking the Ice take place. And they're going to play out almost exactly the same. Regina is a girl with a Glaceon, which makes Chloe interested due to her own Eevee. Regina is very standoffish due to how she was treated at her old school. However, throughout the episode, she starts to warm up to Chloe as a friend. After Chloe and her father help her Glaceon, due to it overexerting itself by using Blizzard way more than it should. The only thing is, at the end of the episode, it's mostly just Chloe and Regina making the ice-based amusement park for everyone at the school. This is because Go and Ash don't have Arctozolt or Dracovish in order to use Ice Fang. Plus, Ash isn't exactly in the best state of mind to be wanting to do something like this anyway. So instead, it's just Glaceon and Eevee doing the work, with a little help from Shieldon. The next day, Go finds out about a catching contest in the Alola region. At first, he's reluctant to ask, as Ash is still in a depressive state that he's failing to hide from anybody at the lab, but he eventually manages to bring it up to his friend. Ash's mood immediately changes when hearing about the idea of going back to the Alola region. If anything, he's like his normal self again. So with that, they decide to head off to the sunny Alola region. But not before Ash makes a quick call. This episode is going to play out almost exactly the same, and I highly recommend watching the original. Ash will reunite with his Alolan family and friends, who welcome Go with open arms, despite the fact he's very shy about being around them. They celebrate together, and Lana will read the letter she got from Lily about how she and Gladion are doing fine and still searching for their missing father. Kiawe will think that Go's actually a rival of Ash's and tries to give him a trial to see if he's worthy. Go pretty much loses, if not for the fact that Kiawe's Marowak makes sure Raboot won't get hit by Kiawe's Inferno Overdrive. Go will then proclaim that he's not Ash's rival and is working towards a goal of catching every Pokemon to work his way up to Mew. The only thing that's different is they'll stay in Alola past this first day, and while Go will still catch an Alolan Exeggutor, he wasn't wanting to go to Alola solely because of that. However, later that night, while Ash and Go are staying at Kukui's house, Kiawe comes over, challenging Ash to a battle. Ash seems both reluctant and excited at the same time, so he accepts the challenge, but Kiawe's been catching on that something is off with Ash. The battle begins, and Kiawe seems fired up. He sends out his Marowak, while Ash calls out his Gengar. Ash, strangely enough, seems to be overthinking the battle, and tries to have Gengar keep its distance and fire off Shadow Balls. However, Kiawe notices the simple pattern of the attacks, manages to get Marowak in close, and it decimates Gengar with a single Shadow Bone. He reveals to Ash he's been hoping they could battle each other again, and has been training hard for their rematch. Ash tries to act like his normal self during this battle, but he still seems unsure of what to do, and ends up sending in Pikachu next. Pikachu manages to take out Marowak with a mix of Electro Web and Thunderbolt. However, Ash did make a mistake at one point and called for Quick Attack while facing the Ghost type. Kiawe brings in Charizard next. Here he reveals he's actually taught his Charizard a new move to combat electric types that would have the advantage against it. This being Scorching Sands. The attack uses the beach terrain to Charizard's advantage, and not only damages Pikachu heavily, but also burns the electric mouse. Ash starts overthinking again, wondering whether he should switch out to one of his other Pokemon, like Dragonite or Scyther. This is when Kiawe calls him out, saying he knows there's something up with Ash. Ash simply says he doesn't want to lose, but Kiawe exclaims that Ash had basically given up before the battle even started. The Ash that he's the rival of would never let himself get down like this, regardless of losing. Ash recites what Bede told him, but Kiawe thinks it's absolute nonsense, and if Ash is really believing that talk, he doesn't deserve to be Alola's champion anymore. Yeah, we're getting the mention of Ash being champion of Alola a lot sooner than in the original. Kiawe then proceeds to say if Ash is going to keep acting like this, then what will his Pokemon think? And what will those he's battled up to until this point think about Ash acting like this? This actually seems to snap Ash out of it. He knows Kiawe's right. Honestly, the reminder that he shouldn't give up until the very end, while worded differently, feels very familiar to him. With Ash is back in the battle and ready to go full force. He has Pikachu run in for a quick attack while Charizard goes for an aerial ace. The two clash and Charizard wins out. However, Ash planned for this. He has Pikachu launch an Electro web at two trees he's flying towards. The Electro web catches onto them and forms a springy surface for Pikachu to hit. Kiawe's eyes widen, recalling this as a move Ash used against Gladion in the Alola League. Pikachu catapults itself towards Charizard and begins to use Iron Tail. To counter, Kiawe tries to have Charizard hit with a Fire Punch. The two attacks both land and result in a double KO. The battle is tied up once again, and Kiawe sends out his ace Turtonator. He's seen Ash's full team, and is curious to see who Ash sends out next. Ash's Dragonite seemed strong, but not like the type to want to battle. At least not yet. Scyther and Riolu seemed strong as well, even though Riolu was still a baby. However, Scyther also didn't have the type advantage in this battle. In fact, most of Ash's team didn't seem to have anything for his Turtonator. But he knew he couldn't be too sure of the real Ash's next move. Sure enough, Ash pulls out a wild card, his Galarian Darumaka. It's another Pokemon that doesn't have the type advantage, but Kiawe is curious to see what Ash is planning. He calls for a Shell Smash to set up, and Ash sets up as well, going for a Belly Drum. With Turtonator's new level of speed, he gets in close with the Dragon Tail, knocking Darumaka into the air. Ash calls for a Headbutt, but Darumaka comes down on Turtonator's shell, activating the move Shell Trap, which blows Darumaka back. Ash catches Darumaka out of the air, finding it to be badly damaged. He asks Darumaka if it feels like he can keep going, and Darumaka nods, leaping from Ash's arm. Ash calls for Darumaka to use Ice Punch on the ground, which Darumaka does. Kiawe isn't sure what Ash is planning, as the ice doesn't even surround Darumaka or Turtonator. But he has to be careful regardless. He calls for a Dragon Tail on the sand, which, after the attack hits, causes the sand to go flying into the air, taking any large frozen chunks with it. However, Ash was hoping for this, as he has Darumaka climb the chunks of ice in order to get up to the largest piece that's high in the air. Ash then calls for Fire Punch, which smashes the ice into several tiny pieces that begin to rain down on Turtonator. He always smiles, seeing the tiny Darumaka trying its hardest, and then calls for Ash to show off his and Darumaka's fiery spirit. Ash nods and calls for Darumaka to charge in. Darumaka ignites its fist and, using the last bit of iced over sand as a foothold, launches itself towards Turtonator. The Fire Punch connects, but Turtonator seems to take it with ease. That's when Darumaka uses its free fist to hit with the powerful Ice Punch, which causes Turtonator to collapse, falling unconscious. Ash has won the battle. but Kiawe isn't upset. He and Ash shake hands before Kiawe makes Ash promise not to lose to anyone else, as he wants to be the one to defeat the great Alola champion. Ash makes that promise, and the two decide to start training together once all their Pokemon are fighting fit. What neither realize is that Go was woken up by the battle and had watched the last part of it. He was especially interested in Darumaka's iced sand climb. Professor Kukui also watched the battle, and he's glad to see Ash is back to his usual self. He only wonders whether Ash really is ready to climb his way up to the top of the Pokemon World Championships. In the morning, Ash and Go get ready for the catching tournament. They find out that the main participant is allowed to have someone assisting them, but both can only use one Pokemon each. Ash decides that after last night's battle, that he should really give Darumaka a chance to help out. Go, on the other hand, goes for his partner Rabu. Now, as in the original, Ash and Go will meet two aspiring trainers, who are big fans of Ash, called the All Out Brothers, due to him being the first Alola champion. The competition will begin, and Ash and Go will go around catching all sorts of Alola Pokemon, which becomes pretty easy as Ash knows how each Alola Pokemon they have found works. Darumaka and Raboot also help out anytime they need to battle a Pokemon. However, each time they catch something, the All Out Brothers appear, trying to show off their Z move with their Kommo-o. However, each time it fails. After a while, Ash gives them some pointers about how they can improve their Z move's power. It's at the home stretch of the competition, and both Ash and Go run into Team Rocket, who seem to be trying to steal the Pokemon of the other competitors. They also make a point of Ash still being depressed, not knowing he's gotten over that now. Before Ash and Go can do anything, however, the All Out Brothers show up and use a perfected Z move to blast off Team Rocket, who will conveniently land at Beware's place, where they'll reunite with their old Pokemon. The competition ends, and Ash and Go are the winners. However, the All Out Brothers come in second place. Ash and Go are rewarded a set of evolution stones, including Fire, Water, Thunder, Leaf, and Ice stones. Go is ecstatic, as these will help fill out the Pokédex even more. Ash, on the other hand, has seen how the brothers used their Z move, and it makes him want to start using them again. Who knows? They might come in handy. Ash's fans also say they're going to do the Island Challenge in order to get strong enough to take the champion title from Ash. Ash laughs, saying he looks forward to their battle, and is already training hard to take on the world. Then his fans turn to Go, saying they're going to catch more Pokemon than he could ever dream of catching himself. Go's a little shocked by this declaration, and actually starts to get a little sheepish, but he ultimately goes along with it. After the two brothers walk away, a girl in blue approaches. She congratulates the two on their successful competition victory. Her name is Asahi, and she's particularly interested in Go's catching ability. She tells him there's a small research project she's part of, and if he's interested, he could try out to join. With that, she takes her exit, leaving Go standing there completely confused. It was such a strange conversation to him. How is he supposed to try out for a project he knows nothing about? She gave him no information, not even a name. Well, with that, it was time to head back to Kanto. And Ash actually wants to go to Pallet Town for a little while. He wants to collect his Z Power Ring, which he left at his house, so they're off to the town of Pallet. Upon arriving there, Ash visits home, checks in with his mother, and grabs his Z Power Ring. She tells him she'll be cheering him on, as he goes up in the ranks of the World Championships. She also suggests that he and Go visit Professor Oak's lab, as something seems to be going on there. So with that, two head over to Oak's lab. They get to the lab and Ash has a brief reunion with all his other Pokemon, before Tracy tells them that Professor Oak is ready to see him now. When they meet up with Professor Oak, he checks out Go's Pokedex. When he sees how many Pokemon Go has caught, he's pretty impressed. He then explains why he wanted Ash to come over. It seems his Infernape has been missing for a while now. His Infernape has been battling against each of Ash's Fire-type Pokemon. The last one he fought before disappearing was Ash's Charizard, and no one knows where it went. Tracy had been looking all over, using his Venonat and Marill to find some sort of clue. But not even he could find anything. So, Ash and Go decide to head out and look for Infernape themselves. As they're looking, they end up running into what Go thinks is a wild Blastoise. He decides to try and catch it, but the Blastoise Hydro pumps the Pokeball back in his face. He decides he'll need to battle it, and sends out Turtwig. That's when a guy steps out from behind Blastoise, greeting Ash while simultaneously poking fun at Go. This is, of course, Ash's former rival, and now researcher, Gary Oak, who reveals he's come back from the Sinnoh region after getting interested in a currently small research group known as Project Mew. Immediately, Go realizes that this is the project he was informed of. However, when he mentions he was offered the chance to try out, Gary just keeps making fun of him. Go's already starting to find Gary annoying, and doesn't see how he and Ash are friends. However, Gary mentions that his current mission is to follow up on rumors that Moltres is in a nearby canyon. Ash recalls that Infernape has been trying to test itself against other fire types, and so thinks maybe they'll find his Infernape in the canyon as well. So with that, they decide to team up. They make it to the canyon, and sure enough, Infernape is there. He immediately leaps at Ash and happily tackles him to the ground. So, now they've found Infernape. It's time to search for Moltres, which doesn't take long as soon Moltres descends down upon them. Infernape wants to challenge the fiery legendary, and so raid battle ensues. Ash uses Infernape while Gary brings out his Blastoise once again. Go, not wanting to be shown up, decides to join as well. He sends out Sobble, who immediately starts to tear up in the fear of the legendary. So Go had to call the lizard Pokemon back, and replaces it with Cubone. Gary shakes his head, and makes a comment about how Go clearly doesn't know his Pokemon well enough. Go just tries to ignore him, and rashly calls for Cubone to try a Bone Meringue. Moltres dodges the attack and tries to use Flamethrower, which Gary has Blastoise get in the way of and block. He then has Blastoise use Skull Bash, which actually manages to hit. Ash then calls for Infernape to attack next, going for a dig in order to get behind Moltres. When Infernape resurfaces, Ash has it use Mach Punch to quickly attack. Once Infernape hits, Blastoise launches off 2 water pulses. The 2 water attacks land, but Moltres hits an Air Slash, which pushes Blastoise back. Go knows Cubone won't be able to hit Moltres, so he switches out for Raboot and goes for Bounce. Raboot springs into the air, and immediately Ash gets an idea. He calls for Infernape to use Flamethrower, which hits the feet of Raboot and causes it to rocket even higher into the air. However, as soon as this happens, Moltres targets Infernape and uses a Hurricane to not only hit hard, but also confuse the Fire Monkey. Raboot lands, but the bounce doesn't do as much as Go would have liked. However, it does distract Moltres enough for Gary's Blastoise to fly in with a rapid spin. Ash looks to Pikachu, and then to his Z-Power Whip. Does he already have to resort to his Z-move? He decides to hold off for now, and brings in Dragonite, who sets up Dragon Dance before flying in with a Dragon Claw. Blastoise also goes for a Hydro Pump at the same time. Moltres' flames grow hotter, and then suddenly the flames fire out in all directions, knocking out Raboot and pushing back Dragonite. Gary points out that this move is Burnout, which gets rid of the user's fire typing. With that, he brings an Electivire, but it doesn't matter, as Moltres flies off. However, a flaming feather floats down to the ground. Gary snatches it and puts it into a jar for safekeeping. With that, the trio head back to Oak's lab. Go is disappointed in himself for not being able to do anything, but Ash and Professor Oak said that he still tried as hard as he could, and that's all that matters. Ash also looks to Infernape. He's already challenging Charizard to a rematch. He thinks how badly Infernape seems to want to beat strong fire types. That's when it hits him. He walks up to Infernape and tells him that if he's trying to make it up to the top of the World Championships in order to face the World Champion Leon. Leon's main Pokemon is a powerful Charizard, and so he asks Infernape if, once he gets to battle Leon, if it would help him. Infernape agrees, and Ash notices how interested the others look. Charizard, Bulbasaur, Sceptile, Crocodile, every single one of his Pokemon want to help beat Leon. So he promises them that once he makes it to the Masters 8, he'll be sure to let them battle alongside him. Go's attention then goes from Ash to Gary, who's on his Rotom phone discussing the Moltres feather with someone. Upon a closer look, Go notices that the person on the other end of the call is actually Asahi. However, before he can say anything, the call ends. Gary smiles, turning to everyone. He says he's got to be going now, but it was nice to see Ash and his Gramps again. Go then asks him why he's wanting to join Project Mew, to which Gary retorts with the question of why Go is interested. Go says his goal is to catch Mew. Gary smirks, asking why he wants to do that. Go is about to explain, but he pauses. Why was he going to catch Mew? Was it just because he met it as a kid? Before anything else can be said, Gary tells Go he'll smell him later, and with that, he leaves. Professor Oak asks Go what he plans to do now, to which Go says he'll try to out for Project Mew and beat Gary to it. And that's where we're going to leave things for right now. So what do you guys think? Are you ready for Go to begin going after Project Mew? How do you feel about this new rivalry with the one and only Gary Oak? And are you ready for Ash to start climbing back up the ranks of the World Championships? Well, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!